It's Monday, December the 17th. We're in the Governor's Room of the Community Center, and this is the regular meeting of the St. Peter Board of Education. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. To do so, we would consider and adopt the agenda before us.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion or the agenda is adopted. Any member of the audience who has a request to speak to an agenda item, we have a card in the back that you can fill out, and when we get to that agenda item, we'd allot you time and opportunity to do that. If you'd all stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first of those we're going to dive into in just a minute is the Truth in Taxation presentation, and later we have quite a number of other financial items that need to be done prior to year end as we go down through our action items. So to start this evening with Truth in Taxation, Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, on an annual basis, the school district reports on the proposed property tax levy for the upcoming year. And as per state statute, the board holds a truth in taxation presentation to describe the proposed property tax increase or decrease, to share that information with the public, take any questions and comments from the public prior to considering approval of that levy later in the meeting. So with us tonight, here's our business manager, Tim Regner, to walk through the proposed numbers for next year. Tim.
Good. Thanks, Paul. In the packet, there was probably about 6 pages. That was the Truth in Taxation presentation. And we'll kind of try and, we spent a little bit of time at the Finance Committee, or actually quite a bit of time going through the numbers. So I'll try and give the overview, and any questions specific, just let me know. The first page is basically kind of an outline that shows the current year's levy will be $6,627,341 is proposed. That's changed. If you remember last, I think it was September, we approved the preliminary levy, and there's 2 changes from what was, I shouldn't say approved, but was certified or whatever. There's 2 changes to that since then. The first one was in one of the achievement and integration levy, the state changed their calculations or adjusted their calculations a little bit, and that went up about $10,000. And then at the Finance Committee, the board, the Finance Committee members recommended to reduce the OPEB levy about $45,000. We had some discussion about that, and you'll see that. So the net effect of those 2 changes is the levy's down about $34,000 from what we've seen in September. The levy went up about $402,000 from last year, which is about 6.5%. I think it's like 6.46%. So that's kind of outlined on the first page there. If you skip through maybe back to about page number 4, kind of gives you an idea of the levy, a graph of the levies over the past 10 years and the changes, what they've went up or down over that period of time. There's been some increases and decreases. The main adjustment obviously was when the bond for the new school came on. Really the heart of the levy is on page 5. It lists all the individual levies. I don't know, it's probably 25 individual levies that make up the total levy, and we try and outline them all. This year's is column G, as you can see there, 6.627, or a $402,000 increase from last year, or 6%. If you remember in September, we approved the maximum levy, and at that point the increase was a little over 7%, and with the adjustments that were proposed at the Finance Committee meeting earlier this week, it drops it down to 6.46%. So, nice reduction there. And then the last page is basically we're required to give the budget presentation. This is what was approved or adopted budget last June We'll be working now with, since we have the audit in later tonight and those numbers, we'll be working at revising the budget for fiscal year 19, but this one was adopted and what we're working on to start with. And like I said, we'll get that revised here in the coming months. So like I said, I went over it fairly quickly, but the actual levy, like I said, there's only 2 changes from what we discussed in September, and otherwise she's pretty similar, and then to the numbers that we had last year in the $400,000 increase. So, but reduced a little bit from September, and I guess that's what we talked about at the Finance Committee meeting. So, I don't know if there's members of the audience here to discuss it or not, but that's kind of what I had for the truth and taxation portion of the meeting.
You know, I guess there'd just be one item that I would note, Mr. Chair, and that is 2 years ago, as the Finance Committee worked, there was no levy authorization, or there was no levy put on for our capital projects levy. Last year, the board chose to bring back a portion of that, and then in this year's proposed plan, the full capital projects levy is back on, which this is the final year. And so there may be Finance Committee members who wish to speak about that as we get to that agenda item later tonight. The second one I just would like to remind the board of is that you will note in the levy breakdown that the Finance Committee and the administration is continuing to recommend that we not levy for the QComp funding. That has been a practice for several years now. We do receive some aid for QComp, but that has been a decision at the board level to not access the aid portion of that state program.
Others? All right. Thank you, Mr. Regner.
Okay.
The next item we have tonight is the approval of the consent agenda. And as per our habit, we'll read through the consent agenda, and if there's anything that needs to be dealt with individually, we can. Otherwise, a motion to approve will be in order. On the consent agenda tonight, we are approving the regular board meeting minutes of November the 19th, 2018. We are approving board study session minutes of December the 3rd, 2018. We are approving bills for $1,986,436.63 and wire transfers of $1,671,282.99 for November of 2018. Treasurer Carlson is not here this evening, but he indicated to me that the bills were in order. Personnel. We're accepting the resignation of a paraprofessional at Hoffman Learning Center effective November 30, 2018. We are approving a maternity leave for a teacher at St. Peter Middle School beginning on or before February 14th, 2019 to April 25th, 2019. We are approving the hiring of a 6.5-hour per day special education paraprofessional at North Elementary School effective December 3rd, 2018. This is a replacement position. We are approving a maternity leave for a teacher at St. Peter High School, a different teacher, beginning on or before March 22nd, 2019 to May 20, 2019. We are approving of a hiring of a full-time night custodial engineer at St. Peter High School effective November 19th, 2018. This is a replacement position. We are approving the hiring of a 6.75-hour per day special education paraprofessional at South Elementary School effective December the 3rd, 2018. This is a replacement position. We are approving the hiring of a 6.5-hour per day English language learner paraprofessional at St. Peter Middle School effective November 26, 2018. This is a new position based on increasing student need. We are approving the hiring of a part-time housekeeper at North Elementary School effective December 3rd, 2018. This is a replacement position. We are approving the hiring of a 6.5-hour per day paraprofessional at Hoffman Learning Center effective December 17th, 2018. This is a replacement position. We are accepting the retirement of a special education case facilitator at North Elementary School effective June the 7th, 2019. We are accepting the resignation of the principal's secretary at St. Peter Middle School effective December 21, 2018. And we are accepting the resignation of a school-age care assistant at St. Peter Community and Family Education effective December the 14th, 2018. And Ms. Engeldinger, we have
We have a new graduate. Yes, I'm happy to let you know that Aiden Bistrup has met all the requirements of graduation from St. Peter High School.
Thank you. And this is the consent agenda. It follows in order. A motion to approve would be appropriate.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion is approved. The consent agenda is completed. Dr. Peterson, I see the student spotlight is full tonight.
We have a full house here. Mr. Graff is going to come on up with his St. Peter Middle School representatives. We are really pleased that over the last 3 months of the school year, or actually now 4 months, as the board set a new direction for our Student of the Month program to highlight student accomplishments at all of our levels. And so tonight is the middle school's turn, and so we'll turn it over to Mr. Graff to introduce his guests.
Good evening. Tonight's a 2-for-1. We got 2 amazing young ladies with us tonight. We have Alexa and Quinn Rostock. Sisters, so I thought let's highlight them both. 2 very busy young women. So we're going to start with Quinn. Quinn is a 5th grader at St. Peter Middle School. You might remember Quinn from last year. She gave us an update on her North's closet. I asked her to come back tonight and provide us with another update to see how this year went. So prior to that, or before that, they don't know I did this, but I did ask their teachers to describe them in 1 word, each of their teachers. And all the teachers said, 1 word? I only get 1 word? That's not fair. But here's how Quinn's teachers described her. Selfless, devoted, artistic, diligent, and admirable. So Quinn, can you give us a little update on how this year's closet went?
This year we opened North's Clothes Closet to all the schools in the St. Peter district. Last year we only included North. I made boxes, donation boxes, to go to each of the schools so that kids could bring bags and drop off the boxes. And before the event, I went to go pick them up and bring them to North. We had the event in North's gym again, and instead of using half the gym, we used all of the gym. We had a lot of clothes. Shields let us use their clothing racks and hangers. They also donated shoes, boots, and clothes. More than 100 people came. The Gustavus softball team volunteered with setup and also helped the day of North's Clothes Closet. Some of my friends helped, and Miss Steele helped, like last year. Next year, I might like to have a bus that brings people to North, because people need clothes, but sometimes they can't get to North. I might like to talk to the newspaper earlier than I did last year, or this year. I might like to advertise a bit better so that more people know about it. And that's pretty much it.
Well done.
Awesome. And I'd also like to introduce Alexa. Alexa is an 8th grader for us. Alexa's teachers describe her as polite, kind, outstanding, dedicated, motivated, and proficient. And Alexa just finished up, am I correct, finished up some Nutcracker performances with Mankato Ballet, and she was Clara, one of the lead roles. So I asked Alexa to come in and just give us a little update on how that went for her.
So Recently I performed the role of Clara in the Nutcracker, and I found out that I was Clara in July, and I started rehearsal in August. It's been an amazing experience. I usually dance about 16 and a half hours a week. I danced even more as Nutcracker got closer. I've had some very late nights of homework and studying because of this, staying up until 1 or 2 a.m., but I would never give up ballet. I was nervous about being the main character for the Nutcracker Ballet. I'm an introvert, and ballet is my passion, though, and I express myself through dance. I was so glad to have this part. A lot of my friends and family and some of my teachers came to see me. It was my dream come true. When I was 3, my great-grandmother and I watched the Nutcracker. It was the first time I saw a ballet, and I decided I want to be a ballerina, and I wanted to be Clara in the Nutcracker. I started ballet 2 months after I saw the Nutcracker, after I turned 4. I've been dancing for about 10 years now. This is my 3rd year in the company. Company is a level for students who have decided that they're serious about dancing. We have to audition and we have to commit our time to ballet. We also have a separate performance for company members in the spring. Last year we performed Swan Lake, and this year we will perform Midsummer's Eve. Only company members can have the key roles in our productions. The company is my team, and every one of the other dancers has been so supportive and kind. I really feel like Mankato Ballet Company has been really supportive of me. In January, I'll be going to Chicago for 2 weekends to audition for ballet summer intensives. These are 5 to 6 week programs that give advanced training. I'll be auditioning for Boston Ballet, Miami City Ballet, Pacific Northwest Ballet, and the School of American Ballet and Kansas City Ballet. This will be my first time auditioning for a summer intensive at a large ballet school.
Wow.
No, at least it's nice to know what you're going to be doing.
Any
And Mr.
questions?
Graff, I assume that her grades are still good, right?
She's doing all right.
Yeah.
Of course. So thank you for coming, ladies, and I just want to say also thanks to Scott and Rita in the back there for the great work that you're doing. Keep it up.
Congratulations. Merry Christmas.
That's great.
Miss Lee.
All right, so student council has been super busy lately, and I never got to talk about November, so the first thing I wanted to say was that we sold like 350 turkey grams, which was a lot for us. They were kind of dying out, so we promoted them a lot this year, and it turned out awesome, so we were really excited about that. Also, we had the first annual pie eating contest at the high school, and that consisted of 4 teachers going against 4 students, and they had 4 minutes to eat the most pie. Everyone was watching. It was really cool, and Benny Combs, the 11th grade representative, won, if you guys were curious. Yeah, it was awesome. So moving on to Christmas, we started pod decorating last week. So we have like the math and science pods upstairs and downstairs, and then the English and like language pods upstairs and downstairs. So each grade gets a pod. They have about a week and a half to decorate it, everything you can bring. And we're also doing a winter accessory clothing drive. And so the judging for that will happen on Wednesday. And it's a little complicated. It's best pod winner, but it's also how many things you donated, what you donated on a point system. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. The winning grade will get to watch a movie for one of their classes at the end of the day. So that's really fun. And then we also have candy grams going on sale tomorrow, I believe, and that's just, it's kind of like turkey grams. It's candy canes with a personal message, and they're just super fun to send. Everybody loves them, so hopefully they'll be as good as the turkey grams. And also today we did teachers' gifts, just to appreciate all the teachers at the high school, and we made some candy sleighs, got them all wrapped up in ribbon, and probably going to be delivered tomorrow, so that's what we've been up to.
Questions or comments from Miss Lee?
Well, Sophia, so you are almost halfway through your senior year.
Yeah.
So we're going to hold this question for next month, but I want you to be thinking about whether or not this has been going at lightning speed or if it's just dragging on and you just can't wait to get moving. I imagine there's a little bit of both, but
Yeah.
let's talk about that next month when we hit that
Okay, I'll think about
50-yard
it.
line.
Write up a good answer.
There you go.
Anyone else? Thank you. Moving into our action items tonight, we are doing a number of financial things, including the audit, which is first. Then we're going to certify the levy, and we have a couple other things after that. So Mr. Regner is back.
I brought some friends.
Yeah.
Actually, Lane Kockelman from our auditing firm, Abdu Eichen Myers, and I'll probably just turn it over to him and let him
Sure.
take us through the audit that was just recently completed from last year.
Yeah, so thanks for having me tonight. I've been here the last couple of years, so I'll try to keep this fairly high level, not try to get caught too much in the details. So basically what we'll go through is the audit report, which we try to summarize into a little more just condensed information for you guys to try not to get caught in too many of the details. So I believe Tim printed out a PowerPoint for you guys, which you guys should have in front of you. So if you open to the first page, I will go through the 2018 audit results. And this is basically what you guys pay for, is our opinion as auditors on the financial statements. So our audit opinion for the fiscal year 2018 was an unmodified or a clean audit opinion. We had 3 internal control findings that we described in our audit. It's going to be annual financial statement reporting prep, which is basically just discloses that we as auditors put together the audit report itself. Limited segregation of duties within the food service department, and then year-end audit and accounting adjustments. So I think we'll work with Tim over the next few years or even next year to kind of get those down a little bit or just make some progress on there. Questions on those at all? We also required to do different testing for various state statutes. We did not find any compliance findings in fiscal year 2018. We also had a clean audit opinion on the single audit, so you guys spent over $750,000 of federal funds. So you had a single audit in fiscal year 2018, which again was an unmodified opinion. And then there's a new accounting standard implemented, GASB 75, which is pretty technical, some accounting and financial reporting for other post-employment benefits, which is required to be put on your financial statements. So if we flip to the next page, which is the financial highlights. So the liabilities and deferred inflows of the district exceeded assets and deferred outflows by about $6.5 million, so that's going to be your net position deficit. A large amount of that is going to be related to your unrestricted net position, which is about $21 million deficit there. And again, that's related to just your accounting adjustments related to GASB 68, which is pensions, and GASB 75, which is other post-employment benefits. So I'm not going to touch too much on that. I will say that your net position decreased by about $3.5 million during the year. Again, it's mainly due to the recognition of pension expense of about $5.5 million. So it's one thing that you guys just have to account for on your financial statements. You have zero control over it. It just has to go on there for financial reporting. Okay. So we'll touch a little bit more on the governmental funds themselves. So overall, total government funds reported ending fund balances of $9.3 million. Which is a decrease of about $13.3 million in comparison to the prior year. The major reasons of that is going to be capital expenditures related to the new high school building. So of that $9.3 million, about $4.3 is available for the district's discretion, which is going to be your unassigned fund balances, which is a fund balance that you guys can spend as you guys see fit. And then the majority of the remainder of the fund balance is assigned for various purposes, capital outlay, and then some various restrictions for other purposes, which we'll get to a little bit later. So the chief operating fund of the district is the general fund. So at the end of the current year, you had unassigned fund balance in the general fund of about $4.5 million. That was about $500,000 higher than your goal at year end. Total fund balance in that fund was about $7.7 million. Again, so there's various other assignments that you guys put aside for various purposes. A good measure of liquidity is to compare that fund balance to a percentage of expenditures. So your unrestricted fund balance represents about 16% of total general fund expenditures, and total fund balance represents about 28.5%. So it's a little over 3 months of expenditures that you guys have in reserves. Okay, any questions on that? If not, we'll go to the general fund budget summary. So overall, you guys had a final budget which called for about a $714,000 decrease on fund balance. In actuality, you were about $1 million to the good of that, so fund balance did increase about $270,000. So total revenues were over budget by about $540,000, so there's a positive variance there due to various reasons. Revenue from state sources was over budget by about $200,000. The main driver of that's going to be your general education and your special education revenue that you get from the state and other federal entities. Revenues from local property taxes were over budget by about $140,000, mainly due to miscellaneous taxes that you collected throughout the year. And then other local county revenue and budget was over budget by about $130,000. There are some various subawards that you guys received during the year that were unbudgeted. And then there's also a sale of lots. So there's a sale of capital assets line item, which was related to the new high school project that was also unbudgeted for. It wasn't intended to be sold, but you did receive $225,000 in cash for the sale of those lots during the year. Okay. Expenditures came in under budget about $200,000. Again, it's a positive budget variance, mainly attributable to sites and buildings expenditures and vocation, education, instructional expenditures, and special education expenditures. Utilities at the new high school played a big part of that. It was unknown what the budget amount would be for that or how they would come in actual. And then some reallocation of payroll and other costs between various programs also drove those a little bit as well. Anything to add to that, Tim?
No.
Okay. So the next page is going to be the food service fund budget summary again. It called for an increase in fund balance of about $11,000, and actual results were very close to that, about $10,000 increase. So sales were up, we're over budget by about $72,000. Again, the new high school is going to be the big driver of that. Juniors and seniors are required to stay there. As a result, the number of meals served increased. And as meals go up, the cost to provide those meals also goes up. And there was a change in a contracted vendor for the food service program as well that also contributed to that. So overall, you had a $244,000 ending fund balance, which is restricted. And our recommendation as auditors would be to have a minimum of 1 month reserve. So you guys are a little over double that of our recommendation of about $110,000. Your other operating fund is going to be the community service fund. So a budgeted amount ended up to be a decrease of about $18,000. In actuality is an increase of about $35,000. So a $50,000 positive variance there. So there was a before school program that was added during the year, which again, new program is going to be tough to budget for and where revenues are going to come in at. So that was a little bit higher than expected. So that was the main driver of that. So again, as a special revenue fund, we'd recommend a 1 month minimum of fund balance in that fund, which would be about $70,000, and you guys are about $244,000 ending fund balance in that fund, which again is restricted for community service purposes. The next page is going to show your operating fund balances the last 3 years. So in 2016, you ended with about $5.5 million, and in 2018, that has climbed to about $8.1 million. So all three operating funds, general, food service, and community service, have saw a positive increase in fund balance the last 3 years. As we talked about a little bit earlier, was a good comparison for liquidity is going to be the percentage of fund balance to expenditures. So overall total expenditures have increased about $5 million the last 3 years. And the main driver of that, as you can see, is your average daily membership on that second to last line item is the number of students has increased about about 30 in fiscal year 17, and then about another 150 more in fiscal year 2018. So that's the primary driver of that. And as a result, your percentage of operations have gone from 23.2% up to 28.4% in 2018. And then the very last line item, the expenditure per pupil unit, is just a little bit under $13,000, which compares pretty favorably to other districts of your size that we kind of look through and audit. Okay. The next page is just that same information in a table, graphical format. So the district is at 3.41 months of expenditures as of June 30th, 2018, compared to 3.81 the prior year. Again, very healthy fund balance in your operating funds for your operations and operating purposes. Okay. The last page here is your UFARS fund balance analysis, which is a little bit different than what we do for financial reporting. The one thing I was going to point out there is a negative restriction for long-term facility maintenance, which will be eliminated through future grants and levies, which is about $500,000 deficit. And then you also have about $2.5 million of assigned fund balances that you have assigned for various purposes, severance, deed trust, capital outlay, and infrastructure, which is always good to put some dollars aside for that. That was drawn down a little bit. Infrastructure and assigned for health and safety did decrease about $400,000 due to various projects. I think there was a roundabout that was put in that some dollars were used for that at the new high school.
Then the sprinkler system.
And the sprinkler, yep.
Yep.
Again, the food service, community service, and building construction funds, they're all restricted, so there's about $800,000 left in the building construction fund as that project wraps up here, and various vendors are going to get finally paid off, or as retainers get paid. And then the debt service fund, there's also $320,000 restricted for debt service to pay off your future bond payments. And there's also $689,000 in your private trust fund, which is held in trust for scholarships. It's using the interest earnings on those to pay out the scholarships. Okay. And that's all I had as far as numbers-wise. One of the last pages we'll go through is future accounting standard changes. So there's 6 new ones. Leases is going to be one of the bigger ones, but that doesn't go into effect until June 30th, 2021. And then there's some other minor ones that a lot of them probably won't apply to your specific government. And then that is all I had, unless you guys have any questions or comments for me while I'm here.
I don't see any right now, which means a motion to accept would be in order.
Move by acceptance. Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the auditor's report. Is there any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, just a quick one. What took about 10 minutes here took an hour and a half at the committee level. We did get down into the weeds on a number of things in particular, and this will come up a little later. The OPEB, the other
Post-employment benefits,
post-employment
yep.
benefits. I think I know that by now. How that's calculated and how that fit into this report. And we'll talk a little more about that later. But again, according to our staff, the audit firm is just great people to work with, and they give us quality information, and it shows the stance of the board of being conservative in determining revenues and conservative in expenditures, so that we've learned a long time ago, I believe, it's easier to add some money to a budget than to cut it out because of some estimates that didn't work out. So Drew and Vicki spent a hard time working on budget and on levies, and again, we'll hit that a little bit later.
Yeah, I'd just like to make sure that we highlight a couple of one-off items in the last audited year that's represented here. We did sell to the city all of the remaining lots from the Travers Green project, and that's a one-time thing, and it generated $225,000. And then at the same time, we used some general fund money to pay for our portion of the roundabout and the exit lane that came in off the road. And also last year, we started the sprinkler project, which is underway in the middle school. And that was a project that we had thought at one time that might be phased in over several years, and once we got the guys there and started going, we just did it. So there are a number of things that, are one-off kind of projects or one-off entities that ended up in this particular budget that moved numbers around that were not necessarily planned for. But this is also one of the reasons why we have worked so diligently for many, many years to have a fund balance, so that when those opportunities present themselves, we can act on them. So, without further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. The audit is accepted. Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Lane.
thank you guys.
Thanks, Lane.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
The next item we have is the approval of certification for the school district levy for taxes payable in 2019. Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, earlier tonight, the school district held its Truth in Taxation presentation, where information was shared related to this year's proposed tax levy. Tim is back here to see if there are any further questions or context that people would like prior to consideration of approval of the levy that is on tonight's agenda. So, Tim.
Like I said before, the levy, this is the formal approving of the levy. We need to do the specific number. If you remember, like in September, we did the maximum. Here we need to do a specific number, after which case we will certify it and send it into the state and the counties, and it'll get on the official tax rolls, the number. Like I said, the numbers change very little from the September meeting. We've kind of talked about them at length, but if you have any additional questions, on any of the individual levies, we can sure field them. But otherwise, I guess what we had talked about at the Finance Committee was that $6.6 million number, with a couple changes from the September meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, put something on table.
Proceed.
Certify the levy in the amount of $6,627,341.26.
Second.
And we have a second. Is there any further discussion or comment?
Mr. Chair, just a couple. As Dr. Peterson mentioned, in the past, we've done pretty much the same thing the committee has, but with different results. A couple of years ago, as was mentioned, one of the things we looked at was the capital projects fund, where we had a pretty significant levy. And we were able to lower that so that we could pass that savings on to the taxpayers of the St. Peter School District property. This year, we specifically asked the staff, in relation to the capital projects, have we identified projects that need to be done? And they came to the committee and they said, yes. We have to have that money this year. This is the last year of the program. So we either did it now or we found other revenue to do it in the future. And it's a number of things that relate to roofs and stuff that isn't real sexy, but it has to be done. As you heard earlier, the Q-Comp levy, we decided again not to levy that. And one nice thing about the Q-Comp levy is it's one of those very rare levies where you can not levy but still get the state aid. If you tried to do that in the general levy, for every dollar that you under levied, they'd also penalize you $1 per pupil in state aid. So it's a two-time hit. So that kind of, but the committee still wanted to, and thought the board, and Mr. Chair, you were there at the committee meeting, felt the board would want to look at trying to get below that 7%, coming down as far as we possibly could, without hurting the educational program, without putting our facilities at risk, and making sure that we had the staff in place to do what we had to do. For example, the two kids you heard tonight. I mean, I'm proud of those kids, and we should be proud of all of our students. So we looked at the OPEB levy, and that's a very complicated levy. I started during the audit, our auditors tried to explain it to us. It took a while for most of us to understand. But we have the ability of levying every year for those post-employment benefits. And we levy a certain amount. Basically, the state tells us how we're going to levy, how to determine the levy. We decided as a committee to come to the board and suggest that we reduce our OPEB levy by $45,000. That sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money. And what will happen, and part of this, I don't want to get down in the weeds because it's extremely complicated, but we will have the authority to make up some if we need some additional revenue. We also have the general fund available, and that's not been used, but it's available to buy if we need some of that 45,000. So with that, I think the committee was very satisfied that we looked at every levy we could. We took action on those levies that we thought would not hurt the programs, but that we could help the property taxpayers. And basically, due to committee action and what this board will do tonight, we moved from a 7.1% increase down to less than 6.5% increase. Which, when you're talking the levies we're talking about, is a pretty good chunk of money. So, Mr. Chair, I'd urge the board to support this, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions, or Tim, and B was a big help too. So, Mr. Chair, that's it. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else have clarifying questions or other additional comments?
I'll just mention one thing on the OPEB levy. I mean, Bob had mentioned about the aid and things like that. The OPEB levy is one of the few levies that it's a dollar for dollar reduction to the local taxpayers. There's no revenue that we lose from the state by doing this, so that was one of the reasons we had looked at this levy, because it's dollar for the local taxpayers. We don't lose any additional revenue.
All right. Well, we have a motion to accept and a second in front of us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried and the levy is set. Thank you, Tim. The next item we have tonight is the second reading of some minor board policy adjustments that we had as a first reading last month. Ben?
Yeah, I don't believe the policy committee heard a lot of additional questions about these policies or these minor changes. So I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you.
I could read them to you.
It's kind of disjointed when you're reading single words.
Oh, I was going for the whole thing.
40 different pages.
If the board does consider approval and votes to approve tonight, it will be a nice launching point for the next policy committee starting its work in January to start our 4-year review of the entire policy manual, starting with chapter 1, the structure of the school district. So.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Policy manual is set. Next, we get to do a rare thing, but a fun thing. Dr. Peterson, do you want to tell us?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, tonight for the second consecutive month, we have the great honor of receiving some guests from the audience tonight, and for our Gifts and Donations Committee to maybe provide an overview of a committee meeting that was held earlier last month, or this month I should say, and then consider approval of a significant, substantial gift by a St. Peter resident who included St. Peter Public Schools in his estate. So with that, I'll turn it over to Annette to introduce our guests.
Yeah, I'm happy to introduce you to Arvis and Bill Grubner tonight. They are here to represent Lyle Bud Gilbertson and his really generous donation to our co-curricular department. That the intention of this gift is my understanding to offset the costs to students who might otherwise have access. And what I've heard from them most is that Bud was just a huge sports fan. And a Saints fan, and I'll let them speak more to that. Thanks for being here.
Well, we probably met Bud about 35 years ago. He farmed out here by Travis. He was into sports, and he grew up in the St. Peter area. I know he loved baseball. He'd watch football, basketball, whatever it was. And he liked kids. Our grandkids, not our grandkids, our kids. He was like, you know, a grandfather to them, very kind. They enjoyed going up to the lake and this, that, and that was the type of person he was. He was very giving. There's sometimes I have to give him a little, I call it crap, but just to get him going. But I tell him, well, you know, he was always a big Twins fan. I said, Bud, watching Twins is like watching paint dry. And that'd get him going. But no, he loved St. Peter, and we're glad that he's done what he's done for you people.
Right. And he just really wants to help the children that don't have the monies to be in sports. So I hope this is where this money will go to.
Well, when we had an opportunity to meet with the estate, the financial office downtown, and heard about this gift and heard about Bud's intention, we raced back to the school district and talked with our activities director about really making sure that the intent of the gift, expanding and providing additional opportunities for kids within our community to participate in co-curriculars. And Jordan Paula, who couldn't be here tonight, was just so excited about what that might mean, as you said, to really help out in such an important part of the school program.
I'm really glad. Thank you.
And it's, we often think that it's just part of being in school, right? Co-curricular is just part of being in school. And it's changed quite a bit. 50 years ago, you needed a pair of gym shorts and you could buy your kids tennis shoes and away you went. And today, even playing basketball is a fee that, and the equipment to be like the other players on the same court, it all adds up. And this kind of gift is we have a track record of using funds in this way, where we have our ongoing advertising programs that generate half the dollars go to scholarships for co-curricular activities and the other half go to some preschool scholarships. So we have a track record of being able to use these funds and to get them distributed to the kids that make the most difference in their life. So we have an avenue to do it. We've got some practice doing it, and those dollars will be well used, and kids are really going to benefit from it. So thank you so much.
So thank you.
And I hope you come and, take up Bud's seat. It's still warm. There's places.
So the school board does have a policy to officially accept the gift. When the motion is made, it would be a motion to accept the gift from the Bud Gilbertson estate in the amount of $86,000.
Motion to accept the gift?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the gift from Bud Gilbertson estate for $86,000. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome.
Thanks to Lyle, too.
The next item we have tonight is one that we do almost every year, and it's a thing that works in conjunction with the city. It is a resolution to approve the opportunity to submit a grant, right, Dr. Peterson?
That is correct.
Yeah?
That is correct, Mr. Chair and members of the board. As you noted, from time to time, our partners with the city of St. Peter are always looking for ways to improve the infrastructure and the safety and just the way of life here in St. Peter. And one way that has happened over the years is through Safe Routes to Schools. That is a grant that is submitted by the city, but it does require school awareness, understanding. We also write letters of support for those grants. St. Peter Public Schools has benefited significantly from not only the partnerships with the city, but you can see very visible things that have happened in our community as a result of Safe Routes. The examples at South Elementary with with sidewalks going from Nicollet Meadows down to south is just one example. Easy access, safe routes, rather than kids crossing Nicollet Avenue. Ways that we work together and can really provide that great opportunity for our kids. So if there are any questions on the program, we'd be happy to answer those. But like you said, it is more of a annual or semi-annual procedure.
Right. Just before someone makes the resolution, I would note this. The City of St. Peter has agreed to provide the required 20% local match for grant funding. Independent School District 508 is not required to provide financial assistance for the construction of the improvements. So we have to sign off on this, but the city is really the one who's putting some money into these safe routes to school, and for that we thank them very much, because it has made a big difference in how we've reconfigured our schools. The age of the kids coming to the middle school is significantly younger now than it was, and we've made some adjustments to those crossings on some very busy streets, and got some people out there to help us, and the same has happened at our other sites as we reconfigured the traffic flow, and the city has been just great in helping to do that. So this is a good thing for us. It does require a motion that is a resolution.
So moved.
Second the resolution.
And as a resolution, it is a roll call vote. I'll start with the gentleman on my right.
Aye.
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 And the resolution is unanimous and carries. Thank you very much. That ends our action items for the evening, which brings us up to information, and we've got some really fun things to talk about tonight.
Yes. So as the principals are getting geared up, the first item on the informational agenda is flexible learning days. It was 40 degrees and sunny this past weekend, so no talk, no anticipation of flexible learning days. However, as the calendar turns and as the weather continues to change, the principals are here to provide us with an update on the current programming and revisions for this school year. So with that, principals.
We'll start with the high school this evening. The flexible learning day plan, we don't plan to need one this year, as Dr. Peterson pointed out, but things happen, and our students and staff are ready for those. We did a survey this year of staff and parents throughout the district, and so at each different level, that information was broken down, and we took from that some important things that we heard from both parents and staff in moving forward with these, because this is as you know, there aren't snow days built into our calendar anymore. So we are moving forward with flex learning days. I can speak for the high school. Some of the information that we heard from those surveys was different than in the other buildings, simply because we are a one-on-one school. Every student is given an iPad. I would say that some of the more this would be expected, but some comments came in that the courses in which student work was already being done and fully implementing that workflow using their one-on-one device. It seemed like that was just a natural extension of the classroom. Class could just go on. And so that's something that we're working on with the help of Mr. Overbo. We just had an Apple representative in on our early release on Friday to talk to teachers about more creative uses of their iPads, and hopefully we'll see that implemented on our early releases as well. I would say that one thing that perhaps didn't come across in the survey, but I heard in just hallway conversations with staff, was a bit of frustration with getting students to actually submit the work that was given on those flex learning days. And then we had the conversation whether that was terribly different than expecting homework from every student on a normal school day, and how to go about working through that with their students.
At the middle school, what we learned from the staff and student survey was really to be mindful with the amount of work that students are asked to do. Most of our students have up towards 7 classes per day. So there's that perfect balance of making the assignments meaningful, but not being overly burdensome where they're spending 10 hours trying to accomplish what they need to do. So we've had a number of meetings both at the building leadership level and at the house level to talk about that balance, to talk about meaningful assignments that are manageable on those flex learning days when families might have to share one computer for 3 kids, or when parents might not be home to support students in that learning.
At North Elementary, that's when you get to see that shift a little bit more, because you have so many homeroom teachers that control kind of the course of each second, third, and fourth grader's day. So as Mr. Graff mentioned, that kind of starts to disappear at North a little bit. And looking at the data, kind of diving into the feedback we got from parents, was, once we get to 10 and younger, and Doreen saw this in her data as well, it's like, it's a snow day. Can't the elementary kids be kids and just go, play in the snow? And that's certainly something that we want to be mindful. In fact, a lot of times our Phi-Ed teachers just kind of plant in there. At North, we use a virtual learning environment called Seesaw. And the Phi-Ed teacher, if kids have Phi-Ed scheduled for that day, they're in that homeroom virtually and kind of remind the kids through Seesaw, like, hey, remember to get outside and build a snowman or a fort, or go get in a snowball fight safely with the neighbors. So, I mean, that's built in there. And we talk about at our leadership teams, at our grade level and specialist leadership meetings, about how this shouldn't be any different than how the virtual learning environment is used daily anyway. In fact, today, just wander around the building, I saw a number of third grade students recording each other just with fact fluency with their multiplication skills on Seesaw that they would post to their class, and they would listen to each other. Daily, you can see them editing each other's written work online, or just simply just reading a chapter out loud into Seesaw so their classmates or their teacher can listen to it on the virtual learning days. So it's really, we've been really trying to push, like, this is nothing out of the ordinary. They get so comfortable of logging in to their virtual learning environment at school that once it happens at home and we have a snow day, they'll just pull up an iPad or their parent's smartphone or a laptop if it's available, and they can kind of lead their own learning. I mean, of course, like Mr. Graff mentioned, if there's 3, 4, 5 kids at home that are trying to log in all at the same time, they're going to have to figure out kind of how that's going to happen if they just have limited number of devices. But we didn't see that data come back in the survey as much as maybe a student at the middle school where they have 7 teachers and multiple kids at home.
At South, we do not advocate snowball fights with the neighbors. We're all about playing with the neighbors and doing it in a safe, respectful, and responsible way.
Snowball exchanges.
We were excited when we looked at our the information that we got back from the survey that overwhelmingly they felt as though the activities were aligned and that they were very reasonable expectations for kindergarten and first grade students. One of the comments that we did see over and over again was what happened to a snow day, and the other was the challenge for parents that work and perhaps take their students to a daycare program that is not supporting them with doing the activities. And so it was just important for us to get the message out to parents, and we did that through our December newsletter, that flexible learning days are just another way for kids to learn, and you're not restricted to learning only happens within the school day. And what are some other opportunities? And there are, we do have each of the subject areas. The parents have a choice of some activities. Some take longer. So if you're trying to fill their day, there's plenty there for them to do. But if you're rather short on time, there are things that only take about 5 minutes in each of the categories. And there's also one area at the end of each one in math, create your own activity and share. And part of that is coming back then and sharing that with their classmates as well. But we have them ready to go. We're now waiting to see if we need to use them at all.
Just as at South Early Childhood has their activities ready to go and their age-appropriate developmental activities that support what's happening in the classroom. Ours too do include getting out and building a snowman, measuring melted snow, those types of things. We've had really good feedback from our parents for those who do choose to participate, and kids are always encouraged to bring their sheet back and share it at sharing time. So when they come back the next day, they can talk to their class about what they did on the day that they did not have preschool. In addition, all of the sites are open during a flexible learning day. We do have a food service staff on call in the event that kids do come. They check in at the office. At South and North, they're asked to register ahead of time, and then we make sure that there's food available for those kids who come.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the opportunity to emphasize that again. A flexible learning day, the buildings are open. There is staff there. There will be food there. If you have problems with arranging daycare, bring them to school. Because if you're going to work, you're driving. Drive by and drop them off. Get them in the building, we got them. And it's meant to be as accommodating as possible for our parents and staffing and community. But it is really nice to have a calendar that doesn't have snow days, that you don't have to come back in June and make up a day or whatever else it might have been in the past. And so thank you for those efforts, and it's an ongoing process where we're going to be refining and refining and refining what works, what's best, what's the most effective. And I do think it's a great reminder to us all that, you know, in the course of a year, your children spend 15% of their hours in public school. 85% of those hours are at home. We only support learning. We're not responsible for it 100% of the time. So anytime you have the opportunity to share those days with your kids, please do. But Dr. Peterson?
No, I was just going to say, I give our principals a lot of credit for running this program now for a few years, and then after a while, casting that net out there to see, okay, what's the staff thinking about this? What sorts of input can we receive? And then also going out to parents. Lots of responses. And so how you filter through those to see what are the themes, what can we learn, I think that's a good characteristic of this team, to want to take an idea, understand that it's got some good things already, and some ways to make it better in the future. So thanks for your efforts.
Next, Dr. Peterson. Achievement and Integration Plan.
As the admin team tags out, we are...
John, you missed us.
Yeah. We continue to make progress on our achievement and integration planning. The board has heard overviews over the last several months and has now actually authorized a portion of the levy to help fund achievement integration starting July 1st, 2019. Tonight we have John Lustig and Etive here to provide us with some additional details and to provide you with an update on the progress that's occurred, because there's been some significant progress. John, as the MVED principal, is also working on a superintendency license, and so John has been providing some great leadership and guidance as we've worked with our principals and with our regional partners in Mankato about our plan. And Etive, as a special programs administrator, also has the technical experience in helping to write grants and plans that ultimately get approved by the state of Minnesota. So with that overview, I'll turn it over to John and Etive to provide us with the update.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson, members of the board. Just as a recap for you, what the Achievement and Integration Plan allows us to do is to access some funding that specifically addresses the purpose for racial and economic integration. St. Peter Public Schools is eligible for this because we are an adjoining district or a neighboring district to Mankato area public schools who have been identified as racially identifiable. So it allows us to pursue this integration with the purpose to increase student achievement, create an equitable education opportunities, and reduce those academic disparities that are based upon students' diverse racial, ethnic, and economic backgrounds. This plan, as Dr. Peterson described, we've been in development for a couple months. There is a timeline involved, but at the end of the day, it's all built around an equity framework. So when we get this done, it'll be a 3-year plan that has to have identifiable objectives that are measurable and that we'll get to track over the 3 years of the plan. And it's very integrated into the world's best workforce. And 2 years from now, in 2020, when we provide the world's best workforce report, it will include the academic and integration results of this plan. The plan allows us access to $250,000 of new funding from the Department of Education. The plan is to create new opportunities and not to supplant current activities. So a big part of our project right now is establishing the goals, which we're going to review for you, but also trying to figure out which activities we can put into place that aren't in place yet to accomplish those. 80% of what we're going to spend money on has to go directly to student services. The remaining 20% can be a combination of professional development and other administrative related costs. So a lot of what we're trying to determine is those student-specific activities. Our plan is required to be approved by you with your approval, which we'll be bringing back to you in February for, but then it needs to be submitted to the Department of Education by March 15th. When it's approved, as Dr. Peterson described, it goes into effect July of 2019. The plan input is a combination of a lot of different pieces of information that we've collected from community stakeholder groups through surveys as well as direct focus groups, as well as working with our administrative team. And a lot of the pieces that we're getting to put into place is really to target in and zero in on those areas. One of the caveats of the plan is it cannot be specifically used for any programming that's directly associated with English language learner programs or special education. So a lot of our plan to be able to measure it, to see if it's working, is really focused on a couple target groups, and those are students who qualify for free and reduced lunch compared to those who do not, and students who are of a race that is not white compared to then students who are white.
As John said, there was lots of stakeholder input to gather information prior to beginning this plan. Through that input and stakeholder feedback, we were able to identify 3 priority areas. The first is listed at the top of your page. It's closing the achievement gap. The second is to increase student and family engagement, and the third is to increase college and career readiness. From those 3 priorities, we identified goals, and with each goal we are required to provide strategies and indicators of progress, so measures to measure over that course of the 3 years, are we making progress to our goal. Many of our goals for the next school year will be baseline years, so we'll be gathering data, then setting goals from there on out for the next 2 years. John mentioned a little bit about the timeline, but as you can see there, January, we'll be sharing this draft plan with you, and then it'll come to the board for approval in February with submission to Department of Education in March. Our next steps are to gather activity ideas from our building principals, so they've been working on that, and those will be directly linked to those priorities and goals, and developing our budget based on those specific activities. Again, all linking back to the priorities and goals.
2 specific areas that the board should, and it's just good for us to get out in the open, regardless of whether it's admin, faculty, staff, or community members that we've had in stakeholder groups. There have been a couple of very, very clear needs identified through this process. First and foremost is the need for a community liaison to work with our schools and the diverse communities within a changing St. Peter to make sure that access to the high-quality programs, the curricular, the co-curricular, the support services, which are all very robust, are accessible to all people. And so community liaison really has risen to the top as being a high priority. That means staff. Another area that has really come through loud and clear is academic support for all students. And so whether that's before school support, after school support, typically we think of just general and traditional tutoring programs. Well, the tutoring and the tutors, that's one element of it, but other barriers that exist for a lot of students is transportation. How do people get to? How do they get from those sorts of opportunities? And so those are the types of strategies that will certainly be a part of the St. Peter plan in a very specified budget about who, how much, and then what's the measurement to gauge progress, along with a whole lot of other activities that are being identified at the building levels.
All right. Questions for Dr. Peterson or our leadership team here? Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good job.
Facilities update.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the facilities update in the last several years had really included, where are we at with the construction phase, and are we on time and on budget, and how are the bids looking, and we have definitely gone beyond that element within the district. But in talking with Mark Bachman and in talking with our principals about the sorts of projects that are on tap or in maybe the longer term, there's still a lot of things happening in the school district when it comes to facility upgrades. St. Peter High School in particular, when you think of the building, that's one thing, but then when you look at the back of the building, the Community Spirit Park, that has been a partnership that has now been in existence for over a year with our City of St. Peter partners. We've met with those folks about how did that go, and what did the maintenance feel like, and how did we come in with our budget compared to what we thought we were going to do. So that's going to very likely be the topic of the next joint meeting of city and school district. But I can tell you that, spoiler alert, people are feeling really good. They're feeling really good about the relationship at the director level, at the frontline staff level, people who are mowing, people who are watching the water meters. And so, but that's a larger conversation that really is a unique partnership within St. Peter here. One of the key areas, and the Facilities Committee had a chance to talk about it this morning, is the board's interest and the administrative staff's work in making sure that we can address continued parking concerns at St. Peter High School. The Facilities Committee had an opportunity this morning to review several designs that have been developed by engineers and architects at ISD, and committee members can certainly weigh in on what you saw, what you liked. Our timeline is for the board to make some decisions this winter, so bids can be let out, contractors can be hired, and that project can be completed in time for next school year. So that is one of the larger projects that the board will have to consider as we move through the winter months. The last thing I just wanted to mention under facilities is that with the levy discussion tonight, capital projects, there continue to be several, whether it's tuck pointing or parking lots, ceiling and light projects at the middle school and at North Elementary. It will be a busy summer, and we're already starting to identify what sort of scheduling needs we have when it comes to read and feed and summer school, and where some of those things might have to shift to make sure that we can get those projects done in time for the start of the school year, which will be before Labor Day in the 1920 school year.
Great facilities meeting this morning. We did talk about parking expansion at the high school. We looked at 5 options. I think we're looking for a little bit more information on one plan that we kind of tweaked. Mark had some really good ideas for that. But that would be looking at the area between the gym drop-off and the main parking lot. I think some of the things that we were looking at this morning were I was for sure, was cost per space and how many spaces, but also, you know, where that additional parking might be located. Does it make sense? Because if you hide it, nobody knows it's there, and so it's got to be easy for visitors, especially first-time visitors, to kind of be able to intuit when they come. And that area that I described has also been sort of set aside, or it was always the intent that that might become an outdoor ag classroom, or, you know, some sort of area to grow things. I know I've heard apple trees and some other things, and so in this plan, not necessarily looking for a fully formed what that would be in the future, but if there are infrastructure needs there, like rainwater catchment or irrigation or an additional sidewalk or something like that, I think it makes sense to at least create a parking situation that could accept that later, or it might make sense, if we're ready to go, to combine a few of those things as well.
So Bob, we've been hearing you, and you're telling us about parking and parking and parking. You're not the only one. You've been faithful in reminding us, and something's in the works.
Thank you.
One thing that is interesting when you start looking at this parking stuff, though, it doesn't take very long, and all of a sudden, you're just as far away as you were if you were in the regular parking spot. And but there are some means and some methods that we think could make it more accessible than it is right now. So. That gets us up to reports. If we are, our principals are coming back. Oh, great. Counting the hours they are.
No.
All right, well, this has been a big week last week, and this week is a big week in early childhood because we do a lot of winter programs. And so 2 a day. We do a morning and an afternoon depending upon the class. We've had lots of visitors in our building, and families get a chance to hear their kids sing, whether it's the songs they've been learning in the classroom or winter-themed, holiday-themed songs, as well as do some learning activities with their kids. So that's always enjoyable. We're also starting to look at programming for next year, and so our open house is in February for school readiness, and so we'll be firming those class offerings up sooner rather than later. So things are hopping.
All right, it seems like it was a long time ago, but the last time we were here, we had only one of our conference nights under our belt, and we completed another evening and another whole full day. And believe it or not, we have less than 5 students in the entire building that were not represented at conferences. So we have an excellent turnout. Teachers work diligently. If someone misses a conference time, they're calling them, and we're providing transit tickets. We're going and picking up families, doing whatever we need to do so that we can help to facilitate that collaboration between home and school. We also said farewell to approximately 21 Block 1 students from MSU that were in our building and have been there since September, working within the classrooms, and we really miss them when they leave. It's just, we get so used to those small groups being extremely small, so the teachers are just excellent at using them, and they're not there just to watch. They get a chance to really see what it's like. We also had 3 student teachers from MSU that graduated, so we were happy to see that they are now putting themselves out on the market, and they will be excellent candidates. Our early release time last week was spent doing some more training on the ELA standards, and as a K-4 building, that's the area. K-4, we are working on that standards development. So that will be our work for PLCs continuing into January and February, and starting to align some of our practices. We are in the middle, as ET alluded to, the middle of the excitement of the holidays, and if you just need a little bit of an adrenaline rush, walk in to South. The other thing that has happened, and you might not realize it, but we have now started the half birthdays in addition to Christmas. So we have Christmas going on, and we have the June people who are celebrating half birthdays. So there is just excitement all over the place, overload.
You were also
but-
doing 2 parties a day.
Yes, cupcakes are flying through the halls of South at this point. But one of the things that I'm just always touched by is the generosity of the community at this time of the year. There are so many resources out there for families and for students, and our parent council had the opportunity to provide presents, gift cards for 14 families, along with one of our church organizations made tie blankets for all of those families. So there's just a lot of wonderful things that are going out the door. We also had the Lions Christmas party that invited families to come and have an evening, a meal and a visit from Santa. And then our Shop with a Hero, our police officers and firefighters took families out, allowed them to shop, and I was lucky enough to have lunch with a student right afterward, right the following day, and she was just going through everything that she had bought for everyone and just was so excited. And we just get random checks in the mail just saying, use this to purchase mittens and snow boots and clothing for students. So thank you to everyone who just anonymously sends us checks in the mail and allows us to provide things so that mainly they're outdoor things so the kids can go out and have fun and enjoy the Minnesota winter.
And I'll have to continue on Doreen's thanking path, because Doreen mentioned the giving tree at South. That definitely continued all the way through North with our PTO. Dave Rebar was Student Services putting together a giving tree that families just stopping in during conferences would pick up an item off the giving tree, and there were 16 families with multiple kids that have a bunch of wrap presents right now in the North office. So we definitely want to thank Dave Rebar and the PTO for coming in, helping with that, wrapping up all those gifts. Continuation of the giving continues tomorrow night. You'll see, if you're to swing by the St. Peter area food shelf, you'll see about 8 North teachers volunteering their time between 5 and 6:30 tomorrow night to open up and help support families that utilize the St. Peter area food shelf, which is in collaboration with our Children's Weekend Food Program. So we know that the families that receive those weekend food packages aren't able to get them when we're off for almost 2 weeks. And so working with the food shelf, that program offers a night for families to go in, and our teachers go in and help out carrying the food items with help families deliver those to their cars and get everything weighed. You heard me mention our virtual learning environment, Seesaw, when we were talking about flexible learning. It provides kind of a cool dashboard that our lead teachers and myself sit down and look at the dashboard every once in a while, and it's pretty cool. I have some numbers here as far as like family and student engagement I'd just like to share with you. We're averaging per month 35,000 posts by students every month. So they're definitely utilizing that. If you kind of, a tool that teachers often use to collect like knowledge from students would be, sometimes worksheets or pulling out things from the notebook and turning those in. But you can see there's definitely a shift going on in the way students submit their knowledge and their ability. And if we're averaging 35,000 posts per month for second, third, and fourth graders, there's definitely a shift there happening. And then with parent visits, they're averaging 17,000 parent visits a month at North. So the parents are engaged too. So it's definitely it's a family learning attempt or collaboration between teachers, students, and families. So that's always fun to see. And then last Tuesday, thank you, Ms. Engeldinger and the high school for allowing and being so generous of opening their doors at the Performing Arts Center, where the second, third, and fourth graders went and performed at their holiday concert under the direction of Mrs. Woods, and we estimated a little bit over about 1,800 people in attendance, rotating them through. Yeah, it seats 1,800 now. I don't know if you're up in the stands.
How many North gyms is that?
Get my calculator. But no, it was great. I mean, families, the students were phenomenal. performed, just sang their hearts out, and then everybody was really patient as we cycled the second grade and the third grade and the fourth grade through. And then there was girls varsity basketball going on, so the place was packed, and a lot of people said, like, hey, can I wander down and grab a hot dog and some popcorn at the same time? Like, go for it. I know they'll enjoy. Or, no? They did not bring it back to the theater, however, they kept it in the commons. So definitely want to thank all the families that attended that. It was a great night. The kids sounded wonderful, and can't wait to hear more.
In September, when our student council formed, one of the first things that those students talked about was this idea of they really wanted to give back to the community. And what they came up with at that time was this idea of a food drive that they would do right around the holidays. We wrapped up that food drive today, and as a middle school, we collected 2,161 pounds of food that was donated to the St. Peter Food Shelf. And to give you an idea of what that looks like, they took a Saints bus to the food shelf, and every seat in the bus had a box or a bag in it. We actually had to rearrange so that the students could go to the food shelf to help deliver it. So very, very proud of our students and their thoughtfulness and their generosity of the families at the middle school. We are also wrapping up our winter concert series. That's what we're calling it. The last 2 weeks we've had 3 concerts, the last one being tomorrow night, showcasing the talents of our 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade choirs, and all of our bands as well. So if you don't have anything going on tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at the High School Performing Arts Center, once again, like Darren, thank you. Logistically, getting kids to, over there to practice can be a bit of a headache, but it is well worth it to be able to have a show in that facility. It really, really sounds good, and it just showcases those talents so much better than our gym. So appreciate it, and we'll see you all at the show tomorrow night.
Well, I love the theme of giving that has come across in this, not just, the generosity of the high school. No, and I really truly do, I just want to keep going with that. The beauty of working with high school age students is that they've taken what I think they've seen coming through the grade levels, and an example being our student council leading the donation drive. And thank you for including that in the fun that leads up to this winter break. I think that's an important message to give to the rest of the kids. Amelia Wernsing is our Student of the Month. Amelia was last year a National Merit Commended Scholar, so she is much deserving. She's taken, I believe, every upper level course that we can possibly offer at the high school, along with finishing up her math early. She hopes to study something in the area of medicine at either Gustavus or St. Olaf. So congratulations to Amelia and her family. One interesting thing, and that I want to thank our Student Services Department for, is a series of 7, they're calling it, leading up to, I know I talk every year about the fact that we're actually we're starting the process of registration for next school year now, and building our course registration catalog. And by department, our teachers are presenting their elective opportunities to students during Saints Time. Our 9th through 11th graders are attending Saints Time in the theater every Tuesday, and they hear from a different department each week to help them make better decisions about their elective opportunities. And we've had great feedback from the kids. And one on a lighter note, I would encourage everybody to, if you enjoy listening to podcasts, one of our high school social studies teachers, Mr. Clark, has started. I believe he's on his number 6, his 6th podcast called I Am Teacher, and it's about an hour-long podcast. You can get it on Apple or Anchor, or there's a third one. You can get it on almost Spotify. It's about an hour conversation that he has. He's shooting for once every other week. His goal is to get to 100, and he's on his. They're fascinating. I'm just proud of every conversation that he's had with each of the teachers that he's interviewed so far. I Am Teacher is the name of it. And it's interesting, each one sounds more professional and, adds music, but they're great.
Questions or comments for any of our administrators? Thank you so much.
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas to all
You
of
too.
you. Thank you. Board members, around the table, Mr. Dixon, other than your birthday, what announcement do you have for us?
No, tis the season of concerts. All the concert series happening, and they're great. It's fun to be in that space and listen to the talents of our students. It's just great. I've seen quite a few of them already. And I'm always a sucker for some F. Malleus. Being from a Midwestern choral tradition, I like that. So thank you for be the concert choir, putting that together is what they call themselves. So thank you very much.
I know Dana Amelius.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't have anything.
I don't know.
No, I don't.
All right. Well, that gets us up to upcoming things. We have, hey, we got this first one done already.
Check.
So the next item that happens is the organizational meeting of the board, which is Monday, January the 7th. Immediately following that is the regular board meeting on that same evening. We have the MSBA Winter Conference, January 16th through the 18th. And I don't think we have any other committee meetings or anything between now and then, do we?
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Which brings us to our favorite agenda item, Ms. Vicki.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Very good.
Superintendent didn't have a report tonight?
Yeah, you did.
I was talking all night. I'm good.
You're right.
I thought we were done.
No.
I rolled it right past there.
It's just fine. I think the only item on there was the reminder of the MSBA workshop,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we're going to that.
We're going.
There is a motion and a second.
We are adjourned. Safe travels, everyone, if you are.